Or you can do hand-to-hand combat with a deal like this guy over there.
Yeah, he killed a dude with a knife once.
Yikes. Allegedly.
It's for the record, when it comes to hunting, when you get the doe urine, now you got to use synthetic. Don't put it on your shoes. Those bucks get a little friendly in November.
Welcome to Cumberland Unfiltered. Our guest tonight is a native Rhode Islander running to become the Rhode Island Senator for District 38, representing Westerly, Charlestown, and South Kingston. He is married and the father of 2 small children. He has been in the workforce since age 15 and took a leap into small business when he opened his own trucking business back in 2014. He therefore is no stranger to the difficulty of running a small business in Rhode Island. He is now employed in the medical field, and we'll be talking about that during the show. Outdoorsman, avid fisherman, conservationist, and a candidate that hopes to improve District 38 by finding common ground, making government less intrusive, and protecting individual rights. Please welcome to the table a real American, Westin Place. Thank you very much for taking the effort to come up and see us. Yep. So, we got a lot to get over because I ran off this kind of thing, which that doesn't mean that we're going to hit every single one of those topics or anything. But you want to tell us a little bit about your path? I know you've run before, and what made you decide to run? Maybe in what years it was that you just ran the first time? And then kind of take us to where we are right now.
Yeah. I started the first time I ran was two cycles ago, so I think that was back in 2022. The Act on Climate had just gotten passed, and reading over that and nobody really knowing what it was, I'm sitting there going, okay, with electricity rate increases, everybody wants affordable housing. I said, affordable housing is different for different people. I said, if you got a rent that's $1,000, right. And at the time, I had gotten lucky back in 2010, bought a house in Westerly, low taxes. Good. My mortgage was like $1,600. So it's cheap. But I said, okay, during the summer, you're spending $300 on electricity. Running the air conditioners. During the winter, it wasn't that bad. I had gas. So I said, okay, what about all the people like my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, who have to spend $700 a month during the winter on electric heat to just keep it at 58 degrees? Wow. You go over there and you're sitting there with your winter coat on and going, why? What, turn the heat up. Oh, I can't afford that. I saw the struggle and I said, with this bill, it's just going to get worse, unless there's an actual fix to it.
No doubt.
So between that, and then there was the Second Amendment problems we had in this state where they wanted to pass all basically restrictions. And right now, I could look at people in Rhode Island and say, hey, you guys are frogs. I said, right now, you're in the pot. They turn the heat on, you can't feel it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we're basically boiling. Oh, no, just a little one every year until eventually it's like, okay, we're worse than California.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost confiscation level.
It basically.
Basically is.
It basically is at this point in time, especially if it ends up passing the change last year, which everybody brought the red flags up. But anyway, I said, this has to change. Now, Senator Algier, who was the state minority leader for 30 years or so down in Westerly, I was like, I'm going to kind of follow in that footsteps. And originally, I was unaffiliated. I know if you go and you redo your license now, you can choose independent, Republican, or Democrat. I was always unaffiliated. They recently passed a law now, just a little blurb, that now if you are unaffiliated, you can vote in the Republican or the Democrat primary.
Yes.
So, that's basically a step from ranked choice voting, which we don't need to get into. That's just a whole other problem. Yeah, I'm not sure. Chicago, let's not go there.
Don't give him any ideas, Eric.
And so I saw all that, and I said, look, we're having someone who did a really good job step down, except that he kind of wasn't there on a very important bill that he should have been there to stop, which I was like, okay, he's retiring, he's given up, he's done his thing. I said, thank you for your service. I'm gonna continue this. And make sure that Westerly, Charlestown, South Kingstown, a little sliver that I get, will get good representation up at the State House. Minority, majority, it doesn't matter. I hate politics when it comes to that. I tell people, less politics in government. Yes. We don't need it. We need people in government.
I agree.
So when I saw that, I said, what do? Originally, oh, maybe I'll run for school committee because my kids are going to be in school in a couple years. I'll run for town council, help the town. I met the kind of the local candidates. I looked at the Democrats. I looked at the Republicans, and I went, dear God, no way. So I ended up going Republican on that. And so I looked at that. I joined them, and I was like, you guys want to help me out? I was like, maybe run, maybe not run. So they were, I know we're getting into a story here.
Oh, how about it?
Glenn Valentine sent me an email. I don't know, you might know.
I've heard that. Glenn and I graduated high school together.
Yeah, Glenn Valentine sent me an email.
Is that ready?
He's like, if you want to step up, run for office. And I was like, oh, well, at the time I didn't know that the senator was going to retire in my area. I was thinking of running for something local either that year or the next year or next cycle. And so, but my stepfather, who's also a trucker, lives in Narragansett where I grew up. He ended up, I called him. I said, hey, there's an active election over there. You would be a good candidate. You're a smart guy, not the greatest public speaker. He used to be a Mormon minister.
Oh, my gracious.
But he had got into an accident, lost a lot of his memory,
wow.
part personality change, but still a great guy. He's honest, which is, what you like in politics.
Heavy battle. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was like, let's go to a meeting and we'll see. And so I'm sitting in the meeting and I was like, oh no, he's Narragansett district, whatever it was for House or Senate, I forget. And then they're like, well, what about you? I was like, what about me? I was like, I'll just be his campaign manager. I'm working. I got 2 young children. I was like, I don't know if I got time to do this. And they said, well, where do you live? I was like, Bradford. And they're like, Bradford, where's that? It's just like if you ask someone, where's Clayville?
Yeah.
I'll be like,
right.
Clayville
Yeah.
what?
Patch.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you.
That's the one from up here.
Yeah. That's where my wife's grandparents live.
Oh yeah.
So they're like, Bradford. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Bradford's part of Westerly, Charlestown, and Hopkinton. They're like, well, what side are you on? I'm like, Westerly. They're like, ooh, you can run for this because we know he's going to retire. I was like, well, I don't know. So they kind of talked me into it. And my whole philosophy on that is that if you have problems or you have an issue, do you sit around and wait for it to become your children's problem? Right. It's just exactly.
Kick the can.
My whole thing is like, even now, if World War III were to break out, I hope it breaks out today or tomorrow. I said, because if it breaks out in 20 years, my son's going to be on the front lines, and I'm going to be aging out, and it's not going to be my problem.
I had that exact conversation with my son. I retired from the Army, went to Afghanistan. He was graduating and he wanted to join the Army, and I said, you know what, take a gap year. We'll wait and see what happens with the election, because I didn't trust Biden to protect the soldiers. And I was in our area on the verge of World War III, and he still wants to join. He's like, okay, Dad, and now he's over a gap year, and I'm like, just let it calm down a little bit, He's like, I was an SF guy. He's like, infantry and then special forces, and he's like, I want to be in combat. I'm like, whoa, what about the Air Force? But I guess exactly what you say, you know what I mean? Like I was the same way when I was his age, and now he's that way.
Well, you're invincible at that age.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah. Let it happen on my shift.
Yeah, let it happen on my shift.
Exactly.
But yeah, speaking of the military, my whole thing is, as a truck driver, I was doing that for about 10 years, 11 years. You make okay money at truck driving, especially if you get into a good company. So my whole thing is, why should I stay in Rhode Island? I could move anywhere.
Yeah.
Carolinas, Tennessee. Personally, I like Wyoming, Montana myself. I like the mountains, but I like the ocean. The problem is I got 4 active generations in Rhode Island, and I have history all the way back to where my great-great-grandfather owned Fox Island out in the bay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no way.
Yes. So I have my grandfather, who was a military veteran. He was in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was one of only the 300,000 people that went to all 3. He was a volunteer, so he retired as staff sergeant, and he passed away about 8 months after I was born. We have the same initials, so I was getting his mail for about 20 years. Yes, which is even worse because my son has the same initials and almost the same names, different middle names. So I'm like, hey, good luck, government. Our birthdays are a day apart. But him and my grandmother are both buried over in Exeter in the Veterans Memorial.
Oh, yeah.
Veterans
My
Memorial.
My grandparents are in there.
I got my mother over in Narragansett.
Yeah.
I got my mother in Narragansett. I got family all over Coventry, Warwick, West Warwick, South Kingstown, all the way up to Clayville. And then I married a Rhode Islander, which that doubled the amount of people. So it's like you go to a family reunion, we got to rent out the Omni Hotel basically. So I was like, I don't have anywhere to go. I like family. I like the ocean. Rhode Island's a beautiful place to live. We had our freedoms that didn't have too many issues, but like I said, we're the frog right now, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And there has to be some change. somewhere. And the start is breaking the supermajority in the House and Senate. If we can write that supermajority, we can say, hey, this budget is nuts. $14.3 billion with a, I don't know, what, $300 million deficit. And it's like, and then they just want to tax. And I'm like, who are you going to tax? You know, we got payroll tax, we got income tax, Social Security, retirement income. And then they say, well, why are all these people leaving going to Florida?
Gee.
You don't pay taxes, and that Social Security check goes a lot farther.
And they get a surplus.
Yeah, they give you money back. And that's the problem. So something has to change, and it has to change now because, example, Westerly is doing a 100-year for the quincentennial celebration. It's a 100-year time capsule that they're going to bury out in front of the town hall.
Yep.
And it's going to be open in 100 years. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like a 50-year one, I'd be alive. That'd be better. A 100-year one, yeah, my great-grandkids. And I thought about it. I'm like, my kids will be dead. My great-grandkids will be old. And I said, what are the chances of them still being able to afford living in Rhode Island?
Yeah, they're going to be living someplace else.
So it has
That's maybe they won't give a shit about the capsule.
Exactly. They're going to open the
Be a
capsule.
PR stunt or
They-
something.
People are
or
going to
other.
open it up, look at these little square boxes with screens on them and go, what's talk tick? You know?
Yeah, we're going to be past all that.
Yeah.
So 3 runs for Republican Senate there, or is this the
number
third?
3.
And I have to say, I thought your Facebook page and website were pretty well done. I don't know if you get better with time or something or other, but they're pretty impressive. so.
Luckily, since I'm friends with a lot of people, I have a really great guy who makes websites for a living. He's very, very busy. So when I send him an email, I say, hey, can you change something? Can you add something? Change some photos? And he'll get back to me pretty quick.
Yeah.
He was a hunting buddy of mine. So we go hunting fairly often. His now wife, he got married last year, the year before, I forget. I wasn't invited. It was upstate New York. We're still friends.
Long way.
His wife is in her residency over in Connecticut.
Of course.
They get to New Haven, so he's living he's over in residency in Connecticut Hospital over in New Haven, somewhere around there. And so he's living on the 3rd floor of an apartment that doesn't have any insulation. So he's super hot in the summer with all the ACs blowing and super cold in the winter because no insulation. So, but he's like, oh, it's only 3 years, and then he's like, I want to move back to Rhode Island because upstate New York. It's upstate New York.
But New York is expensive no matter where you go for taxes. It's worse than here.
The city screws the upstate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, basically, it's one little tiny section of the entire state running the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Top-down government.
Theoretically Albany, but it's not really. It's that.
Yeah. You think, Albany is the capital now. And that's one of the problems with government. It's like you have the people up at the State House, and it's like, oh, yeah, we're all from Providence, from Warwick, Cranston, the high-density areas. They say, oh, what's good for Warwick will be great for Westerly. I was like, when was the last time you were in Westerly? Oh, you went to the beach once. Oh, I know Westerly out the back of my head. Oh, no problem. I was like, no, you don't understand. So there's a lot of things in the redheaded stepchild area of Rhode Island that has to be addressed. And so I've been there since 2010. Yeah. I was in Narragansett before then. I lived in Wakefield for a short time. And so I know South County. I couldn't tell you the names of the roads, but I'll tell you exactly where every colored barn. It's like
and where to turn and how to get to
exactly.
and all that.
Go by here, you'll see the airfield. Take a right.
Rhode Island. One Rhode Island
It's fun when you have a native Rhode Island Native American. At the time, Little Fox in Narragansett. He was pretty famous. I haven't seen him in a while since I moved away. I had a friend that lived next door. We started, between me, my friend, a half dozen other guys, ended up starting the Narragansett Surfcasters. Oh. So I
wants to talk about that.
I was young at the time, so I was like 17, so I wasn't on anything official because I was too young. But they'd call me up for tournaments. Hey. Can you go catch a striper for this tournament? We need another 20 pounds. Okay, well, I'll go do it. Get a call after work at 7 o'clock. I go get something. I go to one of my secret spots, grab a striper, weigh it in the next morning, and then everybo's in a hullabaloo. Oh, heaven forbid. The guys always win. But that's, now it's like I'm in Weekapaug Surfcaster territory. So it's like, uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
So is there a Democrat that's your opponent for down that way?
Is a Democrat my opponent? Yes, it is the incumbent. She came in with a lot of money from out of state, 2022.
From out of state.
From out of state. She grew up in South Kingstown. I think
she
came back specifically with over $100,000 in a bank account, and said, I want to run for office.
Put her own money in?
No, of course not.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah.
Rich families, who knows?
Both her parents are first generation immigrants from China. They both work at URI. So she's an only child. And now they might be really nice people. That's fine. You know, I got nothing against immigrants. It's like they came the right way. Great. So it's funny because, you know, just slight blurred. My opponent, if it was your 12-year-old self, I'd probably vote for her. When she, I'll tell you this, she was about, I think, 12 or 13 years old. She actually wrote an essay to the NRA, and you can look it up. She won an award for that, of why the Second Amendment is important. Because leaving China, you know, China's county,
different.
Yeah.
there's no firearms allowed,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Military.
yeah, nothing.
Exactly. So, like, but whatever happened when she went to Harvard for 10 years up in Massachusetts,
Gee.
something changed. Okay, she came back. She originally wanted to run for the House seat down in Charlestown. I think that's Tina Spears. Leah Bosclair, I believe, is running for that seat.
Yes.
Leah.
Yes,
Yeah,
Leah.
yeah,
We get running for
Leah
that.
was on the show.
So that was the year Tina Spears got in. Now, Tina Spears, you know, she seemed okay, but then, you know, she says one thing and then says, no, I'm going to do another thing. And so, okay, it's my big thing with politics. You say what you're going to do. You know, say, oh, yeah, I support this, but no, I'm going to vote the other way.
Yeah, can't play two sides of the coin.
You
yeah.
can't.
Exactly,
You can't play both sides of the field. You're never going to make 100% of the people happy. It's never going to happen.
No, yeah.
In any business, there's going to be a percentage that are unhappy.
Yep.
If you try to make that certain percentage happy, you're going to upset the other percentage. It's how it works. So she came down, a lot of money, wanted to run for that seat, but they're like, no, we have Tina Spears running for that seat. So we don't want you running for that seat. Okay, no problem. So she decided to run for Senate. So it was me, an independent who had been a town councilor for 20 years, and her. Now, the town councilor, you know, he did a good job. I have no complaints. He's a great guy. I consider him, you know, a good acquaintance. His wife is better friends with me because I don't know. She might have voted for me. Who knows? But she's also the Republican town committee leader down there too. So, with me, what you see is what you get. There's no question of what my motives, secret thing. I'm an open book. I also share too much, which I don't know how I got married, but. So it was a three-way race, and the independent at the time, he says, oh, no, why are you running? I said, well, they said they didn't have anybody running. I was like, run Republican. I said, you were a Republican. You dropped away from the Republican, became independent. I said, run Republican. I'll go for it. And so, you know, he kind of was, no, they said this, they promised me this. And I'm like, look, I'm just coming out here because we need somebody that's not a politician in politics.
100%.
Because you need someone going up there be like, okay, I balanced the budget. This doesn't work. You know, common sense.
Yeah.
And so first impressions are important to me. The first thing he kind of said was, oh, no, you don't have to worry. I'll do this. I say this. But depending on who you talk to, it would be a different answer. Oh, no, he said this to me. Oh, he said this to me. And it's like, no, you're trying to please everybody. It doesn't work in politics. I don't like that. You know, if you hire someone to do a job, you want them to know that job. You don't hire, unless it's a consultant, to consult the other jobs. No. So it's a three-way race. I ended up getting the second highest vote for a guy that had no history, no name recognition, no nothing. And obviously, with a three-way race in Rhode Island with an independent, which there's no independents in the Senate, because if they were the independent caucus, they literally sit up there and twiddle their thumbs. So you have to kind of pick a side on that. And we had been represented by Republicans before, so I said we can continue being represented by Republicans and still get, you know, our roads swept. And
that guy, yeah.
Exactly. So I said, nope. I said, I'm running it through. I said, I'm not turning back, and I made my decision pretty early on. And I said, that's what I'm doing. Obviously, I didn't win. My opponent got in. So last election cycle, you kind of look at what she did. You should ask it for higher taxes, more regulations, you know, stuff that's going to hurt the town. I'm like, this is no bueno. I was like, if you're doing a good job and you're not taking away my,
I'm out, right?
I'm out. You're doing a good job. I'll back off. It's simple as that. Like I got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. I go take my kid fishing instead of being out campaigning every day.
Right.
And it was kind of a rehash. The problem is the support network. The amount of money spent on that campaign was ridiculous. I spent about $6,000. Quick guess of how much my opponent spent.
Oh, is this when she hit the one that had the 100K?
That was the first time.
That was
she had
round
over
one?
100,000.
Oh, the first time.
The second time,
Another 100,000.
about almost $80,000.
Yeah.
So I got spent over 10 to 1 on this. So it's hard if I knocked on probably 4,000 doors.
Wow.
last election cycle. I knocked on 6,000 by myself the first time. The second time, I'm working. I got my kids are a little older. They're going to school. I had to cut down a little bit on it, but I still knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, not including the volunteers. Well, every time I go to a door, say, hey, my name's Westin Place. I'm running for Senate. I'd like to represent you. This is my palm card. Can I answer any questions for you? And they say, oh, you're running against, so-and-so? Yeah, Victoria Gu. And I was like,
Oh my God.
yeah. And I was like, yes. And it's like, oh, yeah, I got like 4 mailers from her in the past 3 weeks. So every week there was a mailer. And I'm like, I can't.
Thousands of dollars.
Every single mailer would have cost a minimum of $5,000.
That's what I would figure, and that's what we
that's what we
earned,
expect,
right?
Yeah.
So and I was like, dear God, I sent out a mailer to about 3/4 of my district last year. I had signs from the year prior I reused because I'm very frugal. My wife calls me cheap. I say frugal.
I like the word.
I like frugal, yeah. I agree.
And so it's like, if I don't need it, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to spend it. I'm not going to waste money on stuff. It's how you should look with any business.
Your signs are pretty sharp, I think.
I thought I changed.
You changed a little bit this time around?
The 3-wave, I kind of came up with that. I originally wanted the wave, but that was the year they switched to the new license plates.
Oh,
I don't know if that hurt me a little bit because nobody really likes the new license plates. You can't even look. You can't even see anything. There's no color differentiation.
No.
So they were sharp. They stick out. They weren't obtrusive. We're doing a little bit more, white patriotic. I think that it's on my website, the new one. So there's going to be some new signs because after about 2 election cycles, they kind of get worn out anyway.
Yep.
So it's time to kind of switch it up. I hate to say it too. AI has helped a little bit because I'm not artistic with that at all.
no,
It's unbelievable.
we know other people that use AI to make signs and things too.
But
So
AI is definitely a
like-
game changer. There's no doubt about it.
So something that I noticed on here, which actually there's a little common ground, is the thing about. So Jason's on the school committee for Cumberland, and there's this thing about.
Parental rights.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wanted to use the correct words. Is that you're pro increased parental rights oversight of education.
Yes.
So there's something that you feel about that from. That's something going on in your schools, in the school system that your kids are going to.
The problem is if you look at the amount of administrators versus students, it keeps going up and up and up. The cost.
Is that really down where you are? That's what's happening?
That's what's happening there. The amount of administrators and administrator assistants and assistants, God knows what. That's where half the budget goes. The problem is Westerly has the second highest per capita kid cost. Okay? We're spending over $20,000 a year per child.
Holy shit.
It's been going downhill. We had one good performing school in the district, which was the Bradford Elementary School. They closed it in 2022. And then they're like, why? Well,
Why would they close it?
it's an old building. We want to centralize the education. When has centralized education worked?
It goes the other way for elementary schools.
You have small schools, smaller classrooms, spread out over different areas. You have less confrontations. And as someone who had a heck of a lot of bullying from 5th grade onwards, I know that that could be very.
That's all about.
I got a whole history with that I could go over, but that's a whole nother episode basically. So it's like, and so now like Westerly, it's all hush hush. They don't want anybody to talk about it. If you get shot down, if you go up to a committee meeting, because right now it's 3 Democrats, 1 Republican on the school committee, and they basically say no. The system has audited itself. The system is perfect.
So you have Democrats or Republicans on the school committee because they went nonpartisan.
Yeah, we're nonpartisan.
Which I don't know that that's good or bad or different, but
Nonpartisan. You know which side they vote for.
They were all the others were on an ad in the paper that said these are your Democrat representatives, even the town council persons who are not
even though it was nonpartisan.
all nonpartisan, but they were on an ad all together, as Democrats.
Don't run as a team. But then they were a team.
Yeah.
So anyway, you had 3 Democrats and 1.
You have 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans on the school committee, and the 2 Republicans on there are absolute fighters. They're both friends of mine. Absolutely, they do great work. But it's cost. Every year, the school committee or the school will ask for more money to the town, more money.
Oh yeah.
And it just keeps going up and up. And it's like we're getting less and less kids. Where's this money going? The schools are falling apart. Oh, now we need a bond for $100-something million to add to the taxpayers for a new school. It goes on. And it's like, well, you had a perfectly good school you could have used. It needed a little refurbishing, but 90% of the time, it's cheaper to refurbish a building than it is to build a brand new one. The other problem, which you probably don't have the issue up here, is land.
The land?
In Westerly, there is protected land from the Westerly Preservation Society. So they want, woods, streams, groundwater, wildlife. And then you have residential. We have one little, a couple little farms. But there's really, where they ended up building the school, edge of a swamp. Edge of a swamp. Now, mind you, Westerly tests positive for triple E almost every year. So it's like, okay, maybe
the skeeters are going to be right.
Yeah, it's like that's not, it's like, oh, we're going to just put this right up next to the swamp, and it's like, oh dear God. So they're going through that, and yes, the school was getting old. It was basically an old bunker. But I went to school in Narragansett, which was literally a World War II bunker.
Oh wow.
So
no way.
Worked fine for me. I was like, you're there to learn. You're not there to lollygag and have fun and fun. You're
Not
supposed to get an
towns.
education.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So they've got away from that. So I wouldn't even put my kids in the school because I put my kids in North Stonington Christian Academy. I found a place for daycare. Most daycare is like $700 a month or $700 a week. Ridiculous prices.
Yeah.
I go there and I'm like, hey, how much for you guys? I got recommended. You got raving reviews. What's going on? And they say, oh yeah, whole year, $5,200.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm doing the math.
Sign me up.
I'm like, okay, here are my two unborn children. We're just going to start now.
Yeah, exactly.
So they go there, small classrooms. We're talking 6 to 8 kids. My son, who is in first grade, is reading at a 4th grade level, which is awesome. Now, mind you, when I was like 10, I was reading at college grade level too, so that helps. But reviews, when I knocked on doors, it was the first time I ran. My son was not in school yet. So I asked, how's the elementary schools? How's the school system? Is there something you don't like, something you do like? The raving review was, the elementary school is not that bad. Now, if somebody said, hey, you'd say, hey, I heard about this restaurant. You say, yeah, the appetizers aren't that bad.
Yeah, right.
Would you go?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You wouldn't. You'd be like, okay, pass. So that's the problem. The administration is just top down, do what they want, spend what they want, ask what they want. But then the kids are also lacking in education. They're not learning to read. They're not learning to write. They're not basically getting ready for the real world. So what do we do?
And for $20,000 a head or whatever you said, like
The
they
amount
feel
of money
us,
we
right?
spend is
So you wonder
ridiculous.
where it's evaporating to because Cumberland's not that high. I think
We're the lowest in
is it like
state.
9 or 13,000? I can't remember where it is.
14.
Yeah, so
14.
what's the difference between 9,000 and
6,000, depending on how many kids are in the school, you multiply it out. I mean, could be significant.
Well,
but
we
I
don't
know.
We don't spend any money on our sports programs because, I don't know how many text messages you guys have had the last
Yeah,
week.
it's
about
like
donating
everybody's hitting you
$50
for
to a
some money,
fucking
right?
team for a uniform. It's like school doesn't allocate
Well, the
money
guy
to
at the-
sports apparently.
The guy at the top he's not a big fan of sports or what? Mr. Thornton?
I don't know how he feels about sports, but yeah, we don't have much funding for sports.
Yeah. Why? You get an $85 million budget. Hire one less person if I could put that money towards the sports program.
There's probably an administrator you can
Yeah,
get it.
there's more. Oh, there's a lot of administrators. Yeah, I can say
It's all
that
this
too.
mental health stuff. Is what many of these administrators aren't they mental health oriented?
Can we just do another one?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know if we had another mental health person, but we have. There's a lot of the outside, mental health and occupational therapists and PT, things like that for a lot of the special ed. That's a problem. I'm not saying special ed kids are a problem, but we say we spend $14,000 a year per student in Cumberland. You can get a severe, profound special ed student that is $85,000, $90,000 a year that you're spending on that student.
Oh, really?
And and a lot of that is salary for people that have to come in and have to.
Help them as they go along with their day, right?
Yeah, and I forget the percentage of special ed in Cumberland. I think it's like don't quote me, but I think it's hovering around 10 or 12. But then you have the lottery for the mayoral academies, the charter schools, and somehow they always miss the special ed kids because they're at
They don't get them, huh?
they're at like 1 or 2% special ed and like BVP right down the road, but we're at like 10 or 12 because when somehow that lottery happens, the lottery never lands on a special education kid. So they're taking the students from Cumberland and we're paying for those students from Cumberland, but they're not taking the high cost students. Those high cost students are staying in Cumberland. So yeah, that's a lot, and then you have to pay for transportation for special.
Yeah, right. With certain people that provide the transportation, right? You have to stick with some particular company for that stuff.
Yeah, they're doing a they have a company that came in to research that to see how we can better do it with all this.
I remember that. They
Yeah, because
put some money aside to do that.
yeah, so they're doing an analysis on that to try to save us some money, but.
So we want to get back to increase parental oversight. So I mean, I understand that. All right. So I mean, I just
No, so that was my thing. I didn't really run. I put my name in.
He didn't.
You know, and I
I'm the asshole running all over town doing all sorts of shit. I should have done what he did.
Brad
Stay home, right?
Brad ran some
Sit
mail.
home and do nothing.
I did go door to door, but I went door to door for Brad. I didn't even have a palm card. I had nothing. No, not a single. I put
Do a sign, nothing.
$10 in my account and didn't do anything.
You for school committee, for town council, stuff like that. The cost should be at most $1,000. You know, maybe some yard signs, maybe a little thing in the newspaper or something. That should be it.
Yep.
That would be normal. For a house seat, you know, it should be like 10,000 at most, absolute most. On a Senate seat, maybe 20 grand. The problem is, if you look at some of the leadership in their campaign finances, I think it's Sakarchi has what, over $4 million?
Oh, $4 million.
Yeah.
He's invested it.
It's like,
He's added
okay.
to it
What-
every month.
Why? Well, it's like that's money that's coming from taxpayers in Rhode Island.
Yep.
So you're just sitting this money, not doing anything with it. I don't think you might be able to collect interest on it. I have no idea. But then it just goes back into the campaign fund.
right.
Why? It's like if you're doing a good job, you don't need $4 million. But that $4 million is going where? You know, but that's just one person. There's multiple other people with millions of dollars. So it's basically, okay, if you're in power long enough, you'll have a huge bank account at the end. But the problem is you can't use that for anything except campaigning.
Correct.
But if you were the House seat president and you got to spend maybe $30,000 a year, couldn't you say, I don't need to take any donations. I'm good for the next, I don't know, 150 years. So that's my whole thing. I don't want, it's like, I need donations, but at the same time, I don't want to take donations. I'd rather somebody's time knocking on doors for me. I'd rather somebody sharing, talking to people, because every dollar we spend on campaigning could be spent on buying a kid a fishing pole. You know, it's like donating to Operation Stand Down, local food banks for veterans, the Elks Club, something important that helps people in need.
Yep.
But we're just throwing tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars away every year. And to who? Who gets it? Like palm card companies in Texas?
Yeah.
Well, they're doing great.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I think we got one or two, couple in Rhode Island, but it's like at the same time for me, I love local. I buy my food from farms, you know. It's like, but the problem we have now is that, okay, local with business regulations, costs, taxes, everything else, they're twice the price of somewhere else on the country. It's like, if I'm working on a minimal budget, you know, skeleton budget, I can't afford the good stuff here. I know it's better. I would love to spend the money, but I can't afford it because I don't want to take money away from the taxpayers in my district.
Right.
So it's like, if people have the money to spend, great, please. But it's like, I get these people like, oh, I'll be able to give you $25. You know, I'm gonna forego eating out with my son this week. And I go, no, take your money, take your kid out. I was like, children are precious. Children are, you know, you want to do what you can with kids until your kids are not there or you're not there. You only have a finite amount of time on this world.
Right.
You don't want to be wasting money not being able to enjoy that, which is why I hate when I hear people, oh, I got 3 jobs. I see my kids on Saturdays. It's like, you poor guy. I was like, I'm lucky now. When I was out trucking, I'd be gone for a month at a time. 3
Is that right?
6 months.
Yeah.
I missed the first 6 months of my son's life because I had to catch up on bills, hospital bills, you name
So
it.
you had to work.
I had to work. So I watched him grow up over the phone, basically, which is hard. But that's kind of one of the reasons I switched over to the medical field, is because now I can go home, tuck my kids in, sing them lullabies, wake up in the morning, get them ready for school, and then, you know, actually watch them grow up and lose their teeth. Exactly. That was happened last week. My son's last tooth. I was like, let me just grab that. He's like, no. I was like, you want to put it in your Nerf gun? I said, you pull the trigger. No, I didn't want that. So I ended up tying a little string to it, and I just gave him a little loop, and I was like, all you got to do is give me a high five, and popped right out. So almost, yeah. So that's
No rights, no drips, no errors.
Oh, you gotta enjoy that stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, but going back, sorry, we get sidetracked. Parental rights and education.
Right, because that's what you ran on. Wasn't that one of your more important subjects for yourself?
Oh, this was it was tied to the tranny stuff. It was parents should know if their kid is trying to transition. There's
The
policy
policy.
that says
Right, what you're thinking.
There's a little bit on that one. My whole thing is you have the Department of Education, which basically puts down the curriculum for the state. which that curriculum goes through the State House. That has to be changed so that instead of the state passing down the curriculum, it's like, okay, the state's going to say, we're going to do math. We're going to be better than those Chinese kids. We're going to be the number, Japanese, whoever, Asian kids. We're going to be number one in math in the country. We're just going to forego the other stuff. Well, if you got, say Westerly, okay, Westerly kids are already doing great in math. We need to focus on reading and writing. Why don't we focus on that here instead? It's not all one size fits all, which is my other issue with the federal Department of Education. You have so many people with a spoon stirring mama's Italian sauce. At the end of the day, half the sauce is gone, and it's like, okay, now the kids are suffering. Then, going to college, they got to lower the standards. The No Child Left Behind Act, I hate to say it, was one of the worst ones because it basically lowered the
Common
standards.
Core.
It did.
I couldn't do Common Core.
It stinks.
I looked it up. That's one of the reasons I wouldn't let my kids go learn it. I'm like, I could not. That basically the parents cannot teach the kids what they know with that. You have to learn a whole different way.
Approach to
Exactly.
education.
So what does that do? That differentiates the parents from being able to teach the kids and the teachers teaching the kids. Now, parents can teach their kids at home, but we all work because it's so expensive. So we want to send them to school. The problem is if with charter schools, it's like, is our charter. This is what we're going to learn. It's fairly straightforward. You have rules involved with that. Do all people like charter schools? No, you say it takes away from public education. I said the problem is it's not public education, it's government education. There's no public transport. There's no public roadways. It's government roadways, government transport. That's why we get taxed off, and they tell us what we can do on them. I said, if you had the schools that say we answer to the school committee, and the school committee has a lot more say in the curriculum, and then the parents show up, and say, my kid's doing great in these classes, he's not doing great in this class. We want to make sure that my kid has a finance class in high school that required to graduate. So he knows how to balance a checkbook. Nobody writes checks anymore, but you know what I mean.
Except for Brad.
Real world skills that will help after they graduate.
No, I'm down with the financial literacy. We just did a show on
I've been
financial
talking about that
literacy.
forever. Yeah, exactly.
So
We
it's
just
like,
went over the credit
they
score
don't. There's a
stuff.
lot of things like that they
Teach
do.
kids
that-
what a credit card, what a credit score is. Teach kids what an interest rate is. 401k.
I love
simple shit you gotta deal with every day.
I love my wife. She went to Johnston. Okay, not saying anything about the Johnston school system,
Johnson schools.
but my wife will ask me, "Well, how come there's less money in the bank account than there is on the credit card?" And I was like, "Honey, I love you. Don't worry about it. Just to swipe the card, we're good. I don't want to have to, And that's the problem. It's like a lot of kids don't learn money, interest, retirement.
practical things.
Practical
you would say,
stuff.
You
right?
can deal with every day.
And so now you got people in the schools, the school. Oh, we need more gender studies.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
You're
For
right.
what?
how's that help your college education? How does that help you get a college degree where you will make money and not owe money to the government and then beg, borrow, and steal to try to get that written off? I was like, I went to college. Now, mind you, it wasn't a 4-year. I wanted to go to law school. Didn't happen. I had worked for too long, and they said, you make too much money to get any sort of help. You have to pay out of pocket. I was like, well, I don't make that much money to pay for that and everything else. Because I have expenses even at 18. So they say, well, just have your parent help co-sign for you. I was like, I grew up in a single parent household. I was like, my mother at the time was going through nurse practitioner school. I was like, she ain't gonna help. She's got her own.
No,
stuff.
oh yeah, exactly.
So I said, what can I do? And they said, well, maybe you should just get a job to help pay for it. I'm working 70 hours a week already. What am I? So I was like, no, I'm not. I can't do it. I could take out $400,000 in loans.
No.
Financially, I looked at that and I was like, okay, at the end, when I have to pay X amount of dollars,
It takes me 25 years to get even.
I literally,
Like,
I'll be living in my mother's basement until I'm 30.
exactly,
I love my mother, but everybody
draw a line
loves their
somewhere,
mother. But
yeah.
at the same time, you like going and seeing them on Sundays. You don't want to live with them. And she wouldn't want to live with me either.
live with their parents forever.
No.
Or whatever.
These kids are graduating now, and where are they going? They have no opportunity. They don't have the real world skills to live on their own, and they have to learn what we learned back, 30 years ago in school on their own. And a big part of that is because the parents don't have the time to teach them all these skills too. Now, I'm not saying it's all the school's fault. I'm not blaming parents. Everybody, we have to survive, and it takes money to survive. So if you had the school committees having a little more control over that, say, okay, our kids are in the past 2 years, it's gone down with reading. We have to bolster that. We might have to cut back on some other programs. As much as I liked shop, as much as I liked home ec, I do cook a lot myself. Sometimes you have to cut back on certain things. You know, it's like even the sports program. I played soccer, I played baseball, I played basketball. I did play football for a little bit, but I was always too big. You know, at 13 years old, I weigh 200 pounds. And I'm 6 foot with size 14 shoes. And they're looking at me going, well,
You're going to hurt somebody.
you're too big. The weight limit,
Yeah.
I'm a brick wall, basically. And so they said, nope, you're too big. And so every year they'd raise the weight limit. But I'm like, I wasn't a skinny kid. Like even now, looking at me, people say, oh, you're like 210 pounds. No. I'm 270. Wow. I'm heavy. And they look at me like, oh, God, your BMI must be too high. Yeah, it's 35. They want me to be 190. And I was like, okay. I said, I'll become a double amputee. I'll be 190. Yeah. So, like I said, the problem with the sports, not playing sports, the money for sports is kind of going to different places because you have the scholastic sports and you have the non-scholastic sports. You know, my kids are part of the Terre Haute Soccer Association. They have... if you want to play sports, there's sports that are run by the town that are run entirely by volunteers. Okay? I think they should have something where different towns can, okay, you're in this school district or these few school districts, you can join that and then they'll, get the volunteers, get the parents that want their kids in sports and not just say, well, I want my kid to play football. School can take care of it. I'll go to games. I was like, and then you run into the cost thing. And if then it's school against school, if you had an area that was a little larger, you get these teams, you have multiple teams. You'd have the money for the volunteers because money going to a nonprofit organization that doesn't, mind you, have a CEO or a CFO and all the executives that make money off it because that's a big thing.
Nonprofits, baby.
These nonprofits are literally about teaching kids sportsmanship, real world skills. Whereas in school, when I was in football, it was you follow the rules, you do what we say, and football, now mind you, the coaches are probably retired by now, so I probably won't get back to me, just FYI. But they basically say, do things that are dirty.
Yikes.
Knee the kids on the chest, crawl over them, grab their face mask when they're on the ground, like all that stuff. They teach you to do that.
Just don't get caught.
And exactly, don't get caught.
Yeah.
And so I look at that, and I was like, I don't fit in with these people.
No.
It just doesn't work. I'm a sportsman, like soccer.
I think that's changed. Maybe I'm not too sure, but I don't know.
It's pretty competitive.
Anyway.
Yeah. At the same time,
I'm out of touch.
It's one of those things where if the school system's doing great, like it was 50 years ago, where there was a graduate,
educationally doing great,
like doing great, sports programs, go for it. I said, but if you're in a failing school and you're putting all this money in sports when the kids can't read, It's as much as I like sports, I like playing them, less watching them, unless it's, watching my kids play. Professional sports, forget it. I got
that's changing
on that one.
They've changed it too much.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so
it's brutal.
Bye baseball.
Hockey's the only one left.
Yeah, it's the only one that left.
Yeah, pretty much.
Football.
Yeah, it was about, what was it? U.S. hockey team won the gold?
Yeah.
Yeah. Take that, Canada.
That was awesome. No doubt about it. That was awesome. That was a great game.
Boys and the women and the men both won their golds anyway. But yeah, there's a lot of the schools have a long way to go. Our reading and math scores are not anything to be proud of, as far as I'm concerned. But
Providence are like 14%.
Providence is like zero.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like nobody can read and nobody can write in Providence. That would be horrible to send your children there every day.
And then the problem is that if you have a kid that's a trouble child, gets into fights, all that stuff.
That schools aren't set up to take care of that kid.
They don't kick them out anymore.
No.
Because if you kick the child out, you lose funding.
Yeah,
you lose a problem. Right, there's a dollar sum associated with it.
Everything's tied to funding. If you have a problem kid that needs to go get a job at 16 and work at a mechanic shop because he's not fit to go to school, send him. That's
why they keep lowering the standards. They lower the standards.
Well, I think they want us to be super, but that's a whole nother story.
Failing used to be anything below.
Government's happy.
Now I think it's below 65.
Yeah.
It's like, how much further down do we have to go? Should be going the other way.
They want to get rid of the scores in general and just be a check plus, or check minus. It's still a check, you pass, no matter
They've
what.
tried that.
Oh, really?
Lots of
Pass
places.
and fail?
It's not
Pass and fail.
It's not gonna.
There's no fails. There's 3 passes.
No.
3 passes.
You barely pass, you pass okay, and you really pass.
Oh, no way.
Okay. It's like, no, I got a pretty good memory. If I look back at my high school times, I remember I read a lot, and I mean a lot of books. That was my hobby. If I was in school, it's like, okay, we learned something on Monday. I got it. We're good. You know, now we got to go over it for the next 4 days. Take a test
Yeah,
on
I
Friday.
know.
For everybody else.
For everybody else.
Yeah. They teach to the middle. They don't teach to the top and the bottom.
Exactly. And so basically they said, oh, you can go to the AP classes. Okay, great. Well, you need more homework. I got work. I don't got time for 4 hours of homework a night. It's not going to happen.
No.
So, so that was the problem. So I sit in English class. It's like, oh, we got to read chapters to each other, or paragraphs or whatever, or pages. And I'm like, why? Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
why not?
I'm just going to start reading this book. I'm 3/4 through. Weston, it's your turn. What? Where are we at? Oh, he's not paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm just 16 chapters past where you guys are reading because this guy's got to sound out preference. and
He remembers this.
You're in high school. You know, and mind you, this is probably like 10th or 11th grade. We're in an English class. The teacher's having us read, and there's kids that can't read. And I was like, if you can't read this book, mind you, not a college level book.
Yeah.
We're talking high school, you know, yay thick. Most of the books I were reading were dictionaries for the most part. They couldn't read words on, and they had to sound them out. And I'm like, how is he in the same class as me?
How's he in the same
He should be
class?
held back
100%.
until he gets to the proficiency he needs to be.
Yeah. Otherwise, that kid gets left behind.
No, he can't leave him behind. He graduated the same year.
Yeah, even if he can
So
read or
so
he
you don't
can't
get
read,
to-
they keep
So
pushing.
you don't get
right
to progress because you got to wait for this kid to catch up.
Yes. That was a big difference in first grade. I remember. I don't remember specifically, but my mother will tell me. I got bits and pieces. I was living with my grandmother and my mother after my grandmother died in North Kingstown, 6200 Post Road at the trailer park across from the bowling alley. Okay, that's where I grew up the first 6 years of my life. I went to Forest Park Elementary School. In first grade, there, I was writing whole paragraphs, whole sentences, letters to my mother, letters to teachers. That's what they were teaching. Well, my mother got lucky at the housing bubble pop back in like 95 or so. Bought a house in Narragansett. It's dirt cheap. Okay, great school system. Go to,
Right.
go to the school. What do they have me doing in first grade?
Same thing you were doing.
Tracing letters.
Oh, tracing letters.
What?
Even
Tracing
worse.
letters. So then they call my mother in, and my mother will tell you. She's like, yeah, he always got some problems. He's not participating. He's not, you know, we might have to hold him back. My mother's like, test him. It's like, what are you doing? He knows red. He knows, you know, red, yellow, and green with traffic lights. That's done. He knows how to write most of his letters at this age. My son can write all his letters. He's in first grade. That's how it should be.
Brett's still working on it. Even the ones in his name, he's having trouble.
And so that was the difference just in the school systems. It went from you're excelling the kids that can excel to we got to keep everybody at the same level. And then my mother said, well, if he's not, you're boring him. He doesn't want to do this. He'd just rather be reading a book or something. Why don't you put him up? Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't push people ahead.
Skip a grade or no.
You can't skip grades. You can't.
They don't do that anymore.
No. If you have somebody who's advanced, they should be going to where they are at that level. And now if they struggle, they can be held back. But at the same time, if they're moving up, they be held back. They're still in the same spot. If you have to be held back and don't graduate till you're 20, I don't think you should be in high school. You should probably go get your GED. And then go, you know,
GED,
electric boat
baby.
is hiring.
No, they'll teach you to weld
They'll
right
teach you-
there,
they'll
and then
teach-
they'll give you a
exactly.
job for like
That is-
$27 an hour.
Now, keep in mind, my brother-in-law is a welder at Electric Boat, works over in Quonset. You start off not making that great money, but after you put your time in, you're golden. It's a great job.
They have good benefits also.
Well, there are insurance, just for the record.
I don't know about insurance, but
Since medical office
that's your
manager,
second life.
their insurance isn't that great, let me tell you.
I mean, the company that they have that covers it,
yes.
but they put money in 401ks.
Yes,
and
you put money in all that.
this stuff,
Most people with the medical from that facility, at least in the regular Joes. I don't know about the administration. They got like a $6,000 deductible. So it's basically, it's just a lot of money. So if you don't see the doctors that often, it's not that bad. But if you if you go to the hospital, it's $6,000. It's $6,000.
Yeah, they gotta try to get everything done the same year because you already got your deductible.
And if you meet your deductible, you're getting tested for everything, my friend. That's how it works.
Exactly,
That's how it
100%.
works.
Yep. No doubt about it.
So what about keeping the cost of business down? You were a small business guy, and I'm guessing I was. Like, you cut corners, you do what you ever have to do to get going, and then you hope that things turn out good in the end. So how are you going to help with the keeping that down here at the State House?
Businesses not businesses, but businesses get taxed 100 different times before we end up having money in our pockets to pay people at the paycheck after we pay the payroll tax.
Yep.
So what can Rhode Island do to help that? You want a business-friendly state. You want more business. You want more electric boat to expand instead of going over Connecticut. You can make it so that the cost of living is cheaper because then they can afford to pay their workers what they're paying them, and they can get more for their money. Now, we have the minimum wage raised to $16, okay, which is basically the 4th highest in the country. California, I think, is $17 and change, $20 for small. We're pretty high up there.
Right.
It's going to be $17 next year. They got a bill in office right now, $24. I don't know about you.
$24.
$24. They got a bill in office right now. Now, my problem is minimum wage. Okay, you want a living wage. When I was working for minimum wage, it was $7.25 an hour. And I knew this was not my career.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to work here. I'm going to gain some experience. I'm going to look for something better. I say, hey, I worked here. I got experience. You move your way up. The problem is people don't want to do that work right now. They just want to say, well, I got a job at McDonald's. I want to be able to buy a $250,000 home.
Would you get a little bit in la la land?
Exactly.
There's no way to make
And
those
so
two things happen.
What happens when minimum wage gets raised?
Freaking inflation, that's been one of the biggest problems in terms of this thing we just went through. Is
No doubt.
the wages going up that is adding to like McDonald's costs where the Big Macs are now $29.75 or something like that.
What happened with the dollar menu? Now it's a $5 menu.
Oh, yeah, it is.
If I bring my kids and my wife,
The wages.
yeah, if we're coming home from a family members and they didn't feed us enough food, because I'm a big dude, I eat a lot, for the most part. And if I have and my kids are, want food, okay, we'll stop at Burger King or Wendy's or something. I'll get them each a Happy Meal with some nuggets or whatnot, 'cause I don't trust the burgers. I'll get myself some chicken or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'll spoil myself with a soda, which, I'm big on vitamins and body health right now, so I wouldn't recommend overdoing it.
Right.
But every now and then, you got to be able to live a little.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It'd be like $80. I don't know, I can go to a sit-down restaurant and spend less.
Oh, yeah.
I can go to, it's like not to say anything about my favorite restaurant. They got a place, but Dragon Palace, Chinese place. I can go get a poo-poo for $4. I can get, fried rice. I can get some tea. And a plate of sushi will cost me $50. I can still tip the waitress $20.
Right.
It's cheaper.
Right.
So it's like, what is minimum wage just raises prices up?
When you
It's all
think
the
about
best.
Okay, so you talk.
Depends right on the consumer. That's all that does.
There's no place to build a house, but how do they tax? I mean, okay, so this town just went through a revaluation. The town was Cumberland. Do you find that I see that as another way that they make it impossible for people to be able to live because they can't afford to go in and buy the house prices because they're setting a new value of a house every 3 years in this town. Do you find that problem down there?
Yes, Westerly just had a reevaluation last year.
That takes a first.
I believe
In like April.
Yeah, something like that. Now, mind you, I have a mortgage, and that's rolled into the mortgage. I think my taxes went up. Mind you, I live next to Section 8 housing, about 100 yards from the train tracks. So even if I put my house is a 3-bedroom ranch, 1,100 square feet. It's tiny. It's a starter home, but I'm stuck there for now because if I sold it, I bought it, mind you, back in 2010, bottom of the market for 120 grand.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
No,
Sounds
not
great,
getting those
right?
anymore, yeah.
Now it's worth 400,000.
Can you stand?
But if I sell it at 400,000, I pay off the mortgage. I have a chunk of change. Then I have to pay more.
Where are you going?
Where am I? I'm going to move laterally.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't afford to make $100,000 house. It's just not going to happen. But that's the only way to move up. So what I can do, I could build up. But if I build up where I'm at, it doesn't increase the value of the house because of the area I'm in. So you're kind of stuck.
Right.
So we reevaluated the houses. So basically what happened is that Westerly in general, just use it as an example because it's the tax town I'm in. Wish it was Charlestown, but I'm in Westerly. We have fairly low taxes.
What Westerly?
Westerly has fairly low taxes. Any town.
You mean like the per thousand number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, most towns along the South Coast, basically, if you live on the water, you're paying.
You're done anyway.
You're paying.
Yeah.
I don't live on the water. I live north of Route 1. I live out in the woods, literally swamp Yankeeville for the most part. So what happens is that those people in those, Taylor Swift, those $1 million mansions, they're paying a few $100,000 in taxes a year.
Wow.
Me, I'm paying a heck of a lot less.
Right.
Now, if I throw my house across the river from me, a quarter mile away to the other town, my taxes go up by like 5-6%, 5-6 times like the amount. So the problem is with that is like you have a lot of the aging population in Rhode Island. The average Rhode Islander ages just keep going up and up and up. So what happens with people that are on a fixed income, whether retirement, Social Security, IRA, anything? Basically what happens, Rhode Island taxes all that. Basically any sort of income over a certain amount, they tax. Now, if you have your grandparents and they're making $68,000 a year, but their property tax is at $12,000, you could do the math.
Oh yeah.
Could two people live in a house where they have to do repairs because they own it outright, pay all those taxes, and live comfortably? No, the problem is the people up at the State House will say, well, if you're not doing well, have your parents help you buy a house. Have your grandparents help you. Okay. Grandparents can't help. They don't have enough. They have
their own problems.
They have their own problems. But then at the same time, the grandparents have a problem keeping their house. Oh, well, you can just help your grandparents out. I was like, well, if everybody's helping everybody, how do we help ourselves? Yeah, it just goes around in a big circle on that.
Yeah, the prices that they're listing these houses for is going to kill these
ridiculous.
towns because
I keep saying affordable housing, but there's
no way to
housing
be
out
able
there.
to do affordable housing when the average
Can't do
house
it.
in this town is
Yeah,
$550,000.
they keep increasing rates,
The problem-
increasing values.
Affordable housing, that's a whole other thing.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
No, I had to wet my whistle for this one. Affordable housing is a big thing, especially in Westerly. The problem is, like I said, I'm pretty well traveled. I've seen 48 every continuous states in the U.S. I've seen bad areas. I've seen great areas. I've been dropped off. Bentley is in Miami at some rich guy's house. I remember dropping off like 3 blue Maseratis for some basketball player in Miami.
Yeah,
He's probably got them on his Instagram. I don't follow sports on that. But drop off like
$100 bills in his hand.
the rims are blue, the car is blue, the interior is blue. These are custom, and I have 3 of them all blue. And so a guy comes up, oh, those are my cars. Oh, that's cool. Big tall guy. Sales guy comes out to sign for him. Oh, you know what that was? Nope. I have no idea. I still don't remember.
No, that's what Brad was saying.
So
They make way too much way. We don't follow them
the
anymore.
average commute in the U.S. is an hour to work.
Is that right?
In an
Really?
hour. In Rhode
I didn't know
Island,
that.
it's like, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
So the problem is with that
Depends.
is everybody with the affordable housing says we need to have cheap housing right where I work.
Yeah, so I can 5 minutes and I'm
So-
there.
so I can-
because I've been doing it my whole life.
Exactly. I don't want, it's like, look, if in Westerly, we used to have the casino, Foxwoods, Hyatt Up. That was our biggest employer down there, Electric Boat and the casino. The casino paid money, but then they weren't doing that well. They dropped a ton of people at Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, and so all these people, lost their paychecks, had to move, had to go find work. Now, if you want to live in your town, you have to be able to find a job and have the skills to pay for where you want to live.
Right.
You don't want to lower the cost in that town, or have other people pay for you to live where you want to live. You live within your means, or slightly below, so that you can work upwards, save money. Finances. It's pretty common. You save money. That money gets interest. You can retire on it. Social Security, I'm going to be started on that. That's a scam. Just because the amount of money you put into it, you don't get back anywhere close. Affordable housing is a big thing. Affordable housing. So it's an issue with, I don't want to move anywhere. I want to live where I grew up. I want to live in the same neighborhood my parents live.
Rhode Island.
I want to live in the same neighborhood my parents want. I want to buy the house across the street. It's too expensive. Sometimes you got to move away, get some skills, learn some stuff, come here, open a business. It's possible to open a business in Rhode Island and make decent money.
Forget it.
Quickly, it's like right now, if I open the business I have now in Connecticut or Mass,
A lot more.
oh, I'd be rolling in dough.
Oh, you'd be making them.
I'd be making a heck of a lot more, but just because in a medical.
Oh, the
decision,
the
This
reimbursements
state's
again.
50 out of 50 as far as opening a business.
Yeah, you're right.
Who the hell wants to open a business there?
And so, when you have all these the low income housing, people look at low income housing. Oh, my mortgage will be low, or my rent will be low. I only have to pay $2,000 in rent. I can afford that. Well, the problem is, what about electricity? What about internet? What about TV, phone, gas bills?
What about the landlord?
It's like, oh, I bought an electric.
Oh, you
Somebody bought an electric car. I didn't. Somebody bought an electric car. Said, oh, I'm going to save money not having to pay gas tax. Well, they learned that this year.
Right. Those are going away.
Now your electric is through the roof.
The electric's through the roof.
30% of it's your green bullshit that the state puts out.
Registration for electric cars went from $100 to like $600 plus.
Is it really now? Did they raise them? Did
Yes,
they whack them like
So
that?
they whacked them with the electric car.
They whacked them with the electric
Because if you can afford an electric car, you can afford to pay $600.
Well, no, the problem is now you're not buying gas, and gas is
It's how they get money to kick care of the roads.
They get it's more for the general fund.
I just say there's no roads. They're not dead fixing the roads.
If I'm washing the fridge, oh no.
Pothole Rhode Island. It's like one giant freaking
So
pothole.
you look at all those things, and it's like me when I look at my, my house. It's like, okay, I have gas heat, which $250 in the winter, $30 to $40 in the summer for hot water, fairly cheap. Electricity in the summer, I'm spending $250 running the air conditioner, so I don't die like so many Europeans do every year. And then in the winter, my electric is lower. So, but you see all these people with electric heat. sister-in-law, $700 a month to keep the house 58 degrees during the winter. I was like, okay, you have to do that.
That
in the winter.
just doesn't compute.
And so now, with one of the reasons I ran for office with that whole Green New Deal, the Rhode Island Climate Act of 2021 or 22, I forget. Basically, I think it was 21. Basically, what happened is like, okay, you have to have electric heat. Your gas.
Yeah, they're pushing everybody.
Everybody has to have electric heat, electric everything. I said, with the electric prices so high, you're basically saying you have to now pay even more for that to live in the house you've been in the whole, but we're going to keep raising your taxes because I'm pretty sure the way it works is that the state taxes the towns have to pay the state a certain amount, and then the state gets taxes from income, payroll, all the other stuff they tax. And then you look at the budget, $15.3 billion.
Oh yeah.
Think about how many people are in Rhode Island in the last census.
Like a million-ish.
Less than a million.
Okay.
I think it was, I don't know if it was 870,000, something like that. But on average, that means if you go home today, you look at your kids, you look at your wife, say you got two kids, look at your family. If you do the math, just do, I don't want to get the number, but if you do, let's say 15.3 billion divided by, let's say 900,000 to make it easy. 15 billion divided by 900,000. What's the number?
16,000. So the kind of looking at
Probably about 16. I think.
Yeah, 15,000 or 100 feet. That's what is the other.
About and the budget keeps increasing year after year. So that means you're looking at a household of four. It's like, okay, I got about $75,000 in taxes they're going to squeeze from me this year. Think about that. How much money money?
crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
That's nuts.
I was like, how is that feasible? We're paying, a family of four, I'm paying $75,000 in taxes, whether it's from buying food that I need to feed my family and paying taxes on that, car tax, road tax, gas tax, payroll tax, basically all the taxes, you add them up. I could go on and on. How is that affordable?
It's not.
How is it affordable? Family of four's got to spend.
Yeah, but everybody's got their hand out. Everybody wants to be great.
Well, they keep pushing the affordable bullshit. It's
But
like,
that affordable stuff.
They're their own worst enemy.
It used to be when you had your house reassessed, they always put it out for a little bit less than what you could get it for, and they never put it out at 100%. Cumberland's now at 100%.
Yep.
And they
it used to be a lot less.
remember how they would always do that and made you feel good about yourself. And when I started,
They always sold for a
my
lot
house
more
has
than
gone
you
up
paid for everything.
73% in the last 6 years.
Yeah, they
My
love all that
revaluation. 73%. I mean, what do they think? I mean, it just, that's why we have the problems that we have, because
joke.
you want to talk about affordability. Well, it starts with what the taxes are based on the property values that they come up with. Anyway, don't let me, that's just one of my little things. So
I built my house, and I built my house for a hell of a lot less than it's worth. And they just keep whacking me with the taxes. So now I have to pay my mortgage. When I built it in 2014, I built it with geothermal. Because
way ahead of your time, kind of,
we
right?
we didn't have water up there, so I had to have a well. I had to have a septic. It's all electric, So I didn't want to, the only option was propane because there's no gas or oil, and at the time propane and oil were really high. I said, I'm going to do this right. I built geothermal into my house, geothermal heat and cooling. I did LED lights. I did spray foam insulation. They came in. Rise Engineering came in to they certified
through it. Yeah.
They certified it as always. They came with no suggestions. They're like, you did everything right. We have no suggestions. It's one of the first houses that I've been in. I was like, oh, that's great. Then they whacked me 25% more for electricity. Then they whacked me another 46%, and then they did the green.
Geothermal's all heat pumps, right?
Yeah, it's all
So you
electric.
just crank and
Everything's
crank
I only have one bill. I have an electric bill. When I first started, I looked at doing solar. I was like, I'm gonna save even more money. None of the math worked out. But at the time I did the first solar company, I was spending on average. I don't have anything more on the house than I did back then. I was spending $242 on average a month. The last time I had a solar guy come up to see if the deal got sweetened, which doesn't, it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, right.
It was $682 a month on average that I'm spending. Same equipment, same load, same everything. It was just the fact that that they kept raising the price. That was it. So they took
Rhode Island Energy.
I did everything that they said to do right.
You should have been rewarded and given some kind of a rebate.
Yeah,
Because
no,
look at
no,
this
no,
guy.
no,
He's now using
I
same
did.
thing in your house. You
got
can't
a
even
rebate.
breathe in there because it's absolutely tight.
yeah,
You
it's
know what I'm saying?
ridiculous.
So
I got a rebate. They gave me 30% on the geothermal, and at the time the Rise Engineering was giving me the LED lights, and that's why I got the rebate. That's why I did it. But now after you do it, they whack you. And then they'll get an electric car.
Yeah, get an electric car. Now you
plug that in at night, right?
Cost you more to charge the freaking thing than it will do to the gas tank.
when it comes to electricity rates in Rhode Island, there've been some maps out there that'll basically show the average rate for I don't know if it's kilowatt hour or however
Probably.
terms or basically Rhode Island we're on par with California with how much we pay for our electric rates. Most of that's basically controlled by the House and the Senate doing the budget. Because if you look at your bill, it'll say how much we charge on energy. Now, we're already paying more for that because they don't contract it out. They don't have fixed rates. We don't shop around. We basically say, we're going to pay whatever you ask.
And
No, it is. There's nobody that's
We're holding the market rates because
Yeah.
we don't have that
And-
gas because New York stopped that that pipeline.
Yes, if we had the
down there in
pipeline.
friggin' New York.
So basically, like Illinois, Indiana, even Michigan, you're looking at $15 to $18, for the same amount of energy in Rhode Island. That would be over $32. Okay, so but then you look at your bill and it says, okay, this is how much the electricity costs. The energy because it's mostly
transmission.
It's mostly
things,
it's mostly
right?
natural gas, and then it's the delivery fee, and that delivery fee has all those add-ons. Now, my business, I'm lucky enough to be above a pediatrician. So they keep their place warm in the winter. If I don't turn my heat on in winter where I'm at, luckily, okay?
We heat it.
I don't need to heat it
for your business.
for my business. I don't
Yeah.
because they're heating it from below,
below.
and look,
Cutting the wall.
not even that bad. It just radiates up from the floor. Which
Oh,
is-
you're on the second floor and it
I'm
just
on a-
comes through the ceiling.
I'm on a
huh?
ground floor. They're in the basement. I got a urologist
Oh,
above
okay.
me, women's health across the way, dentist next door. So it's a medical building, but I don't turn my heat on. So my electric
cool.
rate is basically for those super bright LED lights the state paid to put in, which you cannot dim at all. So you go in there and you're just like,
It is what it is.
oh God, I
you have
can't
to put your
see.
sunglasses
Yeah,
on.
pretty much. And then we have those. I have the vaccine fridge. I have a medication fridge, and then I have the break room fridge, and then just a little TV for the waiting room. So there's not a lot of electricity, right? So my electric cost to buy electricity is $32. The delivery fee is
Oh yeah.
$56.
Yeah, $100 now. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, just think about food. When was the last time you had food ordered to deliver to your house? Buy two $20 pizzas to feed, family of 4, pepperoni cheese because the damn kids won't eat the pepperoni.
No.
Okay, so
Cheese only.
it costs we'll say $45 for cost plus $3 delivery fee. And then you give the guy that shows up. He drove 4 miles, and he's got 6 other houses. I'm gonna give him, $5-10, something like that. What would happen if you went, okay, the pizza came to $45, your total fee's $120.
Yeah.
You'd go, you can take that pizza and
We're not taking anything.
That's
Yeah.
basically a DoorDash.
yeah.
All
But
the
that's
fees
what
they
that's,
tack on that
that's
shit.
basically what they're doing with electric rates.
Right.
You got no other option. You could shop around, but you still have
30% of your bill is all your green energy crap from the
Yeah.
government.
Yeah.
We went into a thing. The representative Vos and I think Pearson was there too. Was Pearson at that, or did he not?
No, he didn't go.
Oh, so it was Vos was there, and it was a thing on Facebook they put out about, oh, we're gonna come talk to you about your electric rates, your high electric rates. We went there. All they did was say, hey, we're all concerned. You guys are all paying high rates. These are the guys that voted for it. And then they turned it over to Rhode Island Power, and Rhode Island Power just gave a shit ton of excuses about why it's.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the end of it, nobody came up with a plan. Nobody said this is what's going to happen.
No, nothing.
They're like, well, you're lucky. We're about to
Kumbaya.
go into another cycle that's going to
gonna
lower.
keep plugging.
Well, it's only lowering because of the cycle, because of the usage and stuff. But yeah, all the people that voted for it, all the people that I don't know if they get money from those companies or whatever, but they were the ones there, and they didn't come up and say, we're working with these guys to lower it. They just said, oh, let me introduce a guy from the company that's, I don't want to say gouging because that's a tough word, but the company that is taking all your money, and now listen to the excuses.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it was. There was no solution.
No, and that was what, a year and a half.
They were just
ago,
trying to
2
educate
years?
you on how to read your bill, and I'm like, I don't really need to read the bill. I just know the bottom line.
That was actually 2 years ago, right? And nothing's changed.
Yeah, nothing's
It's
changed.
just getting worse.
So we're talking right now a little bit about how the numbers are going to work out because we know the Rhode Island, what's it called? The league? Is it the
Rhode Island League of Businesses.
So they're a big helping you, and they're helping a lot of other people
Yes.
that are running with the hopes of maybe getting 4 people on that are Republicans that would then give you a bit of a say in what goes on up there.
Basically, we don't even need 4 Republicans. I'm running for Republican just because it's a 2-party state. If you're an independent, it's kind of you're stuck up there alone.
Yes.
And my mother, I was a Democrat in my younger years, but I was what we would call now a Reagan Democrat. So a pro-business Democrat, low taxes, that party is for the most part is gone. Now if you're a Democrat, it's not the party of your parents, just simple as that. And people got to kind of learn that. But we only need 4 people to basically say, nope, we don't want to pass a budget until you lower the cost, make it cheaper for people in Rhode Island. Now, the problem is you got 4 senators right now who are Republican. Those 4 come up with some good ideas. Back in 2014, they came up with let's get rid of the car tax. They get taxed on 4 times a year.
For a while, but
Well, basically what happened is they said, nope, we're not going to do that. That's not needed. And then all of a sudden, these people are angry because their electric bills are so high and businesses are leaving, stores are closing. It's looking like downhill even farther. They say, well, guess what? We're going to get rid of your car taxes. Look at us. We're doing such a great job. We're helping. And it's like, no, you're not helping. You're saving the good ideas until you need a political favor. Yeah. And that's unacceptable. If it helps the people of Rhode Island, make Rhode Island a better place to live, better education, cheaper to live, where their grandparents can grow up in the same area that their kids. So, you don't have to see your grandparents twice a year who move to Florida just so they could afford Depends. We're not looking at that. We want Rhode Island to be prosperous for every generation. Because I want my kids to grow up near their grandparents, because I grew up in the house with my grandmother.
It's healthy.
It was healthy. I learned from a World War II Army wife how to make grilled cheese and then Jell-O with fruit in it, like rice pudding. Like I learned a lot of
Those are the goodies.
I know how to gain some weight, let me tell you. But she grew up in the time when if there was food, we ate. Now it's, well, picky. I don't want that. I want something else. And it's like,
I don't like
with
that.
my kids, it's
I
like,
make
look,
4 different meals. Yeah.
yeah, I got to cook in my house a lot. I'm not making 4 different meals for my whole family. It's like I'm making one, and if you don't want to eat, you'll be hungry. And you can have
You eat what's in front of you. Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works. That's how I was
They
brought
hear
up.
that enough, though, all of a sudden.
And
right?
they'll say,
I remember that.
I know.
I couldn't leave the dinner table till the plate was clean.
You know exactly. Your mother, you can't leave till the plate's clean. And if you don't eat that, there are starving kids in Africa that can use that food.
100%. Yeah, I heard that line all the time.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where it's like we have to help everyone, because when they say, it takes a village to raise children, I said, no, it doesn't take a village. It takes a family. Simple as that. And if you don't have family, you have to struggle, because then you have to say, we need the state to put our kids in daycare while I go get a job to afford to pay for the daycare.
Yeah, right.
Whereas ideally, if much as if you want to work, you should be able to work. If you want to make the decision, you want to make that decision. My wife was more than happy to stay home and watch the kids. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom because she's like, I had a mom who stayed at home.
Yep.
Because my dad worked really hard. We saw him.
Same as you.
And exactly. Yeah. And so I wanted to do the same thing, because I always knew that, like, when I grew up, my mother was working, and she was a nurse at the time. So I would be hanging out with my grandmother, and then I would stay up late until my mother got back at 11 o'clock, and then I go pass out. I'm not on a school night, obviously. Or I'd wake up in the morning and say goodbye to her at 7 o'clock when she went to work, and I wouldn't see her until the next day. So I luckily had a grandmother that could watch me.
Right.
So I spent half my time in not a nursing home, but the North Kingstown Senior Center. And so and so that's the whole thing. It's like I grew up in a senior center where I would go. I'd play shuffleboards with these old guys.
Why not?
And it's like I was the only kid there.
And they enjoyed you being there, like nobody's to business, right?
So many.
Gary remembers.
I'll be in one of them pretty soon, man.
So you were probably already in that one back then.
Even back then, I remember so many people saying, they tell my grandmother, it's so nice seeing him here. I only get to see my grandkids once every few months when they visit.
They like seeing young
from
people,
Tennessee.
for sure.
So what happens when you leave an old person? No offense to anybody here, but if you leave elderly, if you leave someone alone for too long, they need interaction. Now the senior center helps with that, but the problem is like they want to see their grandkids grow up. They want to see their grandkids grow up. They want to help them out. They want to give them birthday presents. They want to give them their coin collection.
Feel good?
Collection.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm there.
So, yeah, you want to call them.
Gary's card collection.
A car collection, whatever you say.
You want to pull up, see your grandkids, say, "Hey, I'm going to take them fishing. Then we're going to go get hopped up on sugar, and I'm going to drop them off so you can deal with them."
Yeah, exactly.
That's you raise the kids. The kids have kids. That is your right.
Right.
To spoil your grandkids. That's how it works. So if everybody in Rhode Island could afford to live here, that would be the norm.
But they're moving away apparently.
They're splitting up constantly. The families are splitting up. Generations are leaving. You know, it's like if you look at the Veterans Memorial, anywhere, you could see the names of people. And then you can Google those names and see how many people have left.
Yeah.
So many people have moved away. There's a the Bradford Memorial in Westerly. You have a huge list of people. 3/4 of those people have moved out of the town. The families have just up and left. It's not affordable in Rhode Island. And there's better opportunities for kids and grandkids.
It's not going down, and then there's nobody around that's trying to take it down. Everybody's trying to take it up because 4% of a big number is a bigger number. You know, 4% of a smaller number is a smaller number. That's where our town's going. 4% for the big number.
4%.
You know,
8%.
You watch those numbers max out.
8% of your water will be 4% next year.
Yeah, water.
Wait,
water. I use less water at my house, 600 gallons less, and I paid more in cash for my water bill.
Not raising taxes?
He did. he said there's no way that Mutter's Folly is going to create.
Call him on the 10% he raised over the last 3 years. It's like
that's local stuff with that too. So,
we saved. We're supposed to save what, $40,000 on a solicitor deal. The one that now is costing $400,000.
Last time I checked was $40,000.
I can't wait to check that number.
And Mike Kinch. Mike Kinch was very firm. Oh, if this doesn't work out, if this doesn't work out,
we're gonna go back to the drawing board.
we're gonna revisit this.
Yeah. When is that gonna happen? What's the number gonna get to?
It's the polling numbers he's worrying about.
Yeah, exactly.
Polling numbers.
Yeah,
So Brad's a big fisherman and actually owns a business that sells fishing supplies or gear. Is that the right word? Right?
Yeah, it's apparel.
Apparel. Yep.
Jason Taylor.
You are on the cover of some magazine, or at least unless that was.
Was that on the water? That was you on the water, right?
There was a book that was released back in the day, probably about 20 years ago, give or take, that basically listed all the fishing spots on the South Shore and the Bay for all the secret spots for all the surf fishermen. Let's just say there's a few spots in there that I told one of my members about at the Narragansett Surf Cad. Then he went and published a book. Oh yeah. So, but they called me the bait guy or baitman or other derogatory terms when I was back in my early years, because I was one of the first guys who brought a cast net up to Rhode Island. Because I went and lived with my uncle down in Florida for a summer when I was about 15. So I was working down there as a carpet cleaner because he owned a carpet cleaning business. And so I did a lot of fishing down there. And the big thing about down there, you had a cast net to catch live bait. So I was like, I've never seen a cast net.
Near the shore.
Yeah.
Like that's where you catch the
We
bait.
had mullet.
I don't know much of it.
Mullet, Menhaden.
Not mullet hairstyles.
There's a little after that.
Mullet is the fish that you use to catch bigger fish.
Right? Basically, yes. And so down there, you'd use a lot of that stuff for bait. You can catch shrimp. You know, you lose live shrimp down in Florida. And, $2 a dozen. I'm sitting there going, $2 a dozen in Rhode Island. It's like $15 a dozen for shrimp over at the market.
Oh, so you brought your net back.
And so I brought my net back on the plane. Now, mind you, that was like a 20-pound lead-filled balloon, basically. And I brought it up to the state. And so then I started using that, catching fish. And so I would be catching live fish, and I'd bring that live fish where there weren't any bait and catch bigger fish. Pretty consistently.
Yeah.
And then it took about 5 years for it to catch on. So at that time, I was the only one. So people were like, well, I got little snagging hooks for the shad, pogies and bunkers, same thing, or the alewives, which were the herring, which is closed right now because they said we're just going to close it for we're going to close it for a few years. It'll build up the numbers and then we'll open it up. Yeah,
it's like tuna candy.
Yeah, and so
yeah,
love it. Huh?
and so at the time I was doing that, and people like, I'm doing tournaments, I'm catching fish consistently. I'd catch some mullet down, because we do get mullet up in Rhode Island. I would get mullet down in Galilee. I'd bring them up to Wickford Cove, and I'd be catching stripers all night long for a tournament. So I brought that kind of up to the state, and then Walmart. This is before the internet and Amazon. You could order online. If you wanted to order something, you'd have to dial that number 1-800-CATCH-FISH. And then give them your credit card and 4 easy payments of $77.
I just have to cut it out the back of a Boy's Life magazine.
Yeah, there you go.
And then put it in the mailbox.
That's what it was back in the day. And so when I brought that up, I was like, okay, I'm going to start fishing. And I like live bait fishing because there's nothing better than watching a fish hit a topwater. And most of the bait will swim on the surface when it's scared, and then a big explosion, and then that reel's just screaming. So that's the other way. That's what the fishermen are for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the biggest thing. And so, I've been fishing since I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
I was all about fishing when I was a kid. I wanted my middle name to be Fisherman, and that's what it went by for. Oh yeah. And so eventually, my grandmother took me fishing. My mother worked so much, but my grandmother took me fishing. So
That was
Christmas,
cool.
I would get there's photos of me in a rainstorm fishing in puddles.
Because you
Just because I wanted to go, I don't care if I catch something, I want to go fishing. And so now it's
that
just,
is hilarious.
That's funny.
and so, and I was young, a few years old, and so you graduate, you get higher, and so when it comes to the fishing thing, you have the apparel thing. Apparel's great, as long as you don't do creepy things like who's it, Grundens, the odor of Grundens, something like that. Was a big. Oh boy, I don't know if it was Grundens. Just don't quote me on that one. It was some apparel thing, or no, Salt Life.
Salt Life.
That's what it was.
That's the one.
That's what it was.
They just filed bankruptcy. They're done.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did they really?
They did. And they were a big apparel company, big fishing apparel.
Yep. So yeah, it's
That's right.
fishing is we're the ocean state. We got freshwater fishing. We got the only thing we don't have is big catfish.
Can you do it regularly now? Do you, with your mother's business and the medical business and all that stuff? Do you get a chance to get out?
I get out as much as I can.
Yep.
I've graduated a little bit from the shore fishing because there's some shoreline access issues, parking issues.
That's another big thing where you are.
And so I have a small aluminum boat I take out.
That's cool.
So, I take my son to tog fishing. And now if you've ever been to tog fishing, tog is a Rhode Island thing. Some
But
Connecticut.
they fight, don't they? Give a.
Oh, yeah. So you get
I don't fish, but I heard they fight like
You
the
get
devil.
a 16-inch fish. My 6-year-old son will be holding on to this rod like it's a tuna and with the biggest smile on his face.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that's my biggest thing because I want to share my passions with my children,
Right.
which include making sure there's that's why the conservation thing comes in. Whatever I do with my kids, whether it's I take them out deer hunting, turkey hunting, goose hunting, which I did this past fall. Or winter, it was December, no, January. Even my daughter.
Wow.
Even my daughter, I'll take her out.
She comes along with
She'll
you.
come along with
Yeah.
me.
You go
too.
bow, you bow again.
I bow, I gun, I do it all. I get the all outdoors package.
Black powder.
Black powder. It's like
You guys get along.
That's
and
my
all that.
favorite. Yeah, I like black powder. That's
I like
50
black powder.
caliber Hawkins,
favorite
right,
season.
baby?
Yeah.
I've got my my PSC Mach 21 compound bow, which I really like. But at the same time, I'm a big dude. I got a long draw length. I'm pulling 90 pounds.
Oh, I cheated. I went to a crossbow.
The too bulky in a tree saddle. Let me tell you. You're just sitting there swinging this big thing. I prefer. I can pack in, pack out, all the stuff on my back. It's good exercise, and I keep up with it because a lot of people say, "Well, I stopped hunting, X amount of years ago," and it's my whole thing is like, if you did hunting, take up hunting again. Because that's what pays for the public parks. That's what pays for conservation. It pays for open land.
Oh, the
Oh, yeah.
fees, what you
the fee, the taxes and fees for all the stuff you buy.
There's a million deer around here. I think there's not enough hunters.
Instead of hitting them with your car.
Freaking deer everywhere.
If you want the deer population to drop down, there's two options. There's three options. You can hire someone to shoot them, which is what they did in Jamestown. They just left a bunch of dead deer all over the place. They popped them at night.
So they did. They just left them.
They did, as far
Nobody took them.
as far as I know, yeah.
Jesus.
You can introduce predators, which we got bears, we got coyotes. There's some wolves that range into Rhode Island.
doesn't sound too
There's
smart.
bobcats, which can take down small deer. But the most responsible thing to do is because we take up so much natural space, is to have hunters knock down the population. Now, the anti-hunters will say, "Oh, you're a horrible person. You shoot a deer. What do they ever do to you?" Well, my insurance premiums are up.
They're delicious.
Because they hit them with the cars.
They're delicious. My whole thing is like, look, it's like you're going to tell me don't shoot a deer when you go to the store and buy hamburgers and hot dogs. You
don't think there's something in there that you don't know
I
about?
still buy
want your
soggies, okay? All right. I still like the natural casing on
You
the
want your
soggy.
grass-fed beef? There's your grass-fed beef.
Exactly, and so my whole thing is like, look, those animals are stuck, on a good farm. It's an open space. Most of the time, it's a smaller farm. I like my animal free, doing its own thing, reproducing, spreading the gene pool. He's trowel on through in the woods, smelling a hot dough, and he's got one track on mine, and then he's just enjoying life, living his fullest, and then gone. And then he's feeding me and my family all year.
Yep.
He's feeding my neighbors. He's feeding my friends. I'm donating it to people that it's like, oh hey, yeah, I'm eating nothing but pasta. It's like here have 10 pounds of venison. I'll give you that'll last you a good month or two. Get some protein in you. It's all natural. It's grass fed. There's no added chemicals. There's no hormones. There's nothing. It's it's delicious.
Yeah, no doubt.
In them.
Especially the blizzard there. They start eating,
because
they start eating the pine.
There were some
Pine trees. All your pine trees from the
They came way
5
down
feet
on
down.
food chain on that blizzard.
So what
How that
happened?
snow?
You know, with Rhode Island, with the amount of snow we had this year, you know, which is a lot more. What happens is we've had mild winters the past 20 years. We're kind of in a warm spell. And I've been warning people for 4 or 5 years. I said there's going to be a year where it's going to be bad, and it's going to be
This
the
was
norm
the
for about
storm,
10, 20 years.
Yep.
Okay, because it swings up and down. As the
You
average,
think it's going to be high for a while?
well, it's been high for a while. If you look at the average temperature in Rhode Island, now a lot of people don't know about the whaling
Yeah,
summer.
anyway, yeah.
You ever heard of the whaling summer in New England? Whaling summer, I think, was back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. It was 120-something degrees in Boston. They called it the whaling summer, and a lot of people drowned in rivers because there was no air conditioning
Just
back then.
cooled off. Tried to cool off.
It was it was very, very hot. There was a
No, but they would jump in the water.
they would go in the water. It was called the whaling summer because mothers would hold their kids and keep them awake during the middle of the day when they mostly would nap. Because if they let them sleep, it would be too hot, the babies would die.
Holy shit.
Okay? That's the hottest ever recorded it's been up in
I did not know that.
So, I know. History off. I got a
I
whole
like
bunch
it,
of
I like
information here. I can't name the exact date, but you can look it up.
1800s.
It was late 1800s, early
Close enough.
1900s.
Oh, whatever.
It was right around that time, and so there was a lot of drownings. Babies were dying because it was too hot. And what happened is, if you look at the average temperature, you'll get 10, 15, 20 years where it'll be above average, which we've been the past couple of years. We're in downwards. So now we're going to be down. It's going to be cold again for a bit before it goes up. Because I'm the blizzard in 1998. I think it was.
Maybe 95. I don't know.
No, not 78. On 88, it was April 8th. There was our April 1st. It was the April Fool's blizzard. Now I know this because it's my birthday. Okay, I was born a fool. So
I was gonna say that.
you know.
Well, happy birthday. Is that?
That's right. Happy birthday. It's tomorrow, isn't it?
Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow's
that's
your
tomorrow.
birthday.
So
It's
this-
our birthday.
Freddie, it was 19.
Where your birthday?
It was 1998. I was in middle school. I wake up. My mother's like, "You gotta get ready for school." And so if you think back 20 years ago, this is going back 20, 25 years. When I wake up, I get ready for school. I open the door, and there's 14 inches of snow.
Yep.
No plows, no nothing. You're just like, why'd you wake me up? April Fools. Yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh yeah, she tells me that story every year too. And so you look at what happened. We had white Thanksgivings. We had snow around. We get the first flurries
absolutely.
around end of October. We would have white Christmases in the norm. When was the last time you remember a white Christmas?
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
It's been what, 15,
Yeah, it's been a long
15
time.
years?
Yep.
It's been a while.
Yep.
That's what happens. We go down into that cold section, the cold and so we're at the start of that. So I don't want to quote myself or I don't want to judge, but just looking at the history and what happens up and down, there's an average temp. We're starting into the below average temps.
I don't mind the temperature. I
gonna
just
have
didn't
winters
care
again.
50 inches of snow.
We'll have winters again.
We're gonna have winters again, and with the amount of snow cover, getting back into the hunting, when you shoot a deer,
Clear signal.
you know,
point it is.
you drop the population. If there are too many deer in an area, and there is snow cover that stops them from eating a lot of food.
Right.
So what would you rather have? A deer that was hunted and fed a family, or a deer that starved to death by a slow, cold starvation in the woods that ended up feeding some varmints or something else that are eating your house cats and your small dogs?
Yeah.
What would you
100%,
prefer?
no doubt about it. Yeah.
If those are your two
Absolutely.
options, what would you prefer?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So it's.
I agree with you. That's and you're right. It's funny. The guy's no problem going there and getting a burger.
Yeah.
But a cow that they just freaking slaughtered and injected with all these freaking chemicals and everything else. But you're right. Shoot a deer. It's so yeah.
Every deer we take in the woods is one less that you can hit in your car.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. So, well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Has anybody got anything else I want to say? You want to fill us in on?
Or you could do hand-to-hand combat with a deer like this guy over there.
Yeah, he killed a deer with a knife once.
Yikes! Allegedly.
Did you?
It's a Rhode Island legend.
Well, for the record, when it comes to hunting, when you get the doe urine, now you got to use synthetic. Don't put it on your shoes. Those bucks get a little friendly in November.
Oh, that's funny shit.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, if you watch the show, and we had a lot of people that watched the show, but we lost our YouTube channel. So if you're not getting the alerts, please go back on and resubscribe to the YouTube channel and like the videos so that they get more play. Brad's working on getting the links working back on the Instagram. We can't get Instagram to send us a code, so we're gonna put that on Instagram too. We still have a lot of viewers on Instagram, but Instagram only sees a 30-second clip. So we're at the code back working, but yeah, definitely go like on YouTube. We're getting back regular with the shows again, so there'll be a lot more content coming. Our new producer is Clear Signal Productions. Call or text 978-877-1555 or clearsignalproductions.com. It's a great professional organization. They've been doing our last 3 or 4. Is this
Three
shows? It is completely taken a lot of the heartache or the pain off of getting it done. It's it's
A lot smoother process. These
a lot
days.
smoother, automatic. It's automatic. We just say, hey, this is what we want, and the next thing you know, it's in the email and then posted. So it's a great company.
Westin Place, District 38, Senate. Cast a vote. He's the guy you wanted to see.
We're going to post your Facebook page and the your website on this so that they can see what your things are too. Facebook.com/Westin for Rhode Island. And that's the Facebook, and then the Westin4ri.com, right?
Westin, WSTIN, the number 4 at ri.com.
So thanks everybody for listeing. We
Appreciate
look
it.
forward to seeing you next time. All right.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's maybe after victory.
That's right.
If anything, victory or hunting season, one of the two.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt about it.